All right, so we're here today, work on a brand new 2020 Ducati Monster 797 Plus. Just got delivered. And first things first, we got to get rid of this stock tail section, this big handle sticking out of the back. So we went to our buddies over at Motodynamic and we ordered ourselves up their tail tidy kit and their tail light. We got the Ducati Monster for the tail light. We did the LED smoked sequential tail light. So you're not going to need these blinkers anymore. They're going to be right inside the tail light. We went with the smoked version on this. And that's the same tail light for a 797, 821, 1200, and the Supersports. That's SKU D14MST-S, and we'll put a link in the description so you guys can know where to get that. We also got the Fender Eliminator kit to get rid of that big handle sticking out the back of it. And that's for Ducati Monster 797 and 797 Pluses, 2017s to 2020. That's SKU FE D17 MST 797. So we're gonna open both of these up and we'll see what's inside of them. So here we got part number TLD010. That's the tail light smoked. And unbox that. Again from Motodynamic in El Segundo, California. We run these on a few of our Ducatis and we've always had good results with them. We ran some of those cheaper eBay ones and they often do not work. The other thing is that smoke's really nice. Has a good looking reflector. Comes with all the pigtails it looks like and wiring that we need for this model. So we're not gonna have to do too much work. That's nice. It even has the crimps. And this is the voltage stabilization kit. Often with these, the tail lights start blinking really, really fast. And you have to buy these voltage stabilization kits separately. But Motodynamic is nice enough to provide that and all of the wiring. And we got right here the instructions. So we'll go ahead and do that. We'll probably do the tail light kit first. We can unbox that one. This is Fender Eliminator. All right. This also from Motodynamic, the Fender Eliminator kit. This has a good substantial weight to it. This looks like the license plate holder. All right, so that's gonna take care of our license plate. This is gonna help clean up the underneath of that tail section. Everything's all stamped out perfectly. Should mount in pretty easy. Our hardware, this kit does come with the ability, if you want to, with these little extension arms, you can mount these off of the back of this and still run your own turn signals if you decided not to go with the integrated tail light. But the integrated tail light is going to mean that we don't need to use those guys. And then they send you a few different pieces depending on the type of aftermarket tail lights that you want to use. And then all of our spacers, our hardware. I believe it's all stainless steel hardware. Motodynamic makes nice stuff. We've never had a problem with any of this hardware stripping or rusting or anything like that. So we got our hardware kit there. And then usually with these little tail light or the license plate lights, they're often also either machined or made out of metal. This one looks like it's a polymer or a plastic. Still looks like it's well made. A couple LED lights there. So we'll use that. That should plug right into the stock harnesses as well. but we will find out. And of course, instructions from Motodynamic, pretty easy to follow. Great, let's get started. All right, here's our tools for today. We're putting on the Motodynamic tail light and Fender Eliminator kit. It's pretty simple. We have a 10mm box wrench, quarter drive ratchet, small extension, T15 Torx, 7mm socket, that's for putting the license plate light on. We have 3 T-handle Allens, 4mm, 5mm, 6mm, and a flathead screwdriver. Not a lot of tools, pretty simple. We'll put the list of tools in the description as well, so you guys have them before you start. First, we'll take a look at this beauty, Ducati Monster 797 Plus. Has ABS brakes. And again, today we're working on this rear fender. And so the first thing we like to do, you can see underneath here, the bolts. We'll show you all how to do that. But the first thing we usually like to do is get this seat off, so that we don't damage or mess up that cowl if you have that nice cowl on there. All right. Yeah, probably gonna grab that. Just take that seat off. We'll be getting into a little bit of that, but don't have to deal with it a whole lot. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the bottom of this fender. A 4mm hex. We like to use a T-handle. Makes it a little bit easier. And the 4 that we're going to be removing are this one, 1, 2, 3, and we got 4 here down in the back. So we got these 4 kind of in a diamond pattern. We'll go ahead and remove those now. They can be a little tight to break loose. It's one of the reasons we like to use the T-handles. They make your life a lot easier. You could also use a 1/4" drive ratchet to do these. But we've found that sometimes when you're using a ratchet, especially on some of this Ducati hardware, you lose a little bit of sense of the feel, and you may over tighten when you're putting stuff back together. There's 2. Make sure we grab a shop light next time so you guys can see a little bit better. But you'll be able to identify these 4 pretty easily. Where's this last guy? Tough to see from underneath. There we go. There's number 4. One of the things we like to do is, Harbor Freight, $2.99. A little magnet dish. It'll hold all of our hardware there for us so we don't lose it. That's it. Okay, so now, just get this lower fender off. Get a little flathead. And we're just gonna kind of flip it off. Actually, Motodynamic's instructions say that there are 4 bolts. There's actually a 5th, also 4mm hex. So we're going to go ahead and take that off as well. So the 5th one is right underneath the light. And you can see this is starting to come down now. Now if we look up underneath there, right, we have our 2 turn signals. We have these little zip ties, which we will unclip. These are just the... All right, so now to remove the rest of this fender, this oversized ugly fender, we're going to use a 6mm T-handle. These ones are much easier to see. These are your silver ones. We're actually going to use the short end to break it loose. Ducati keeps things pretty tight, and they often have a little bit of Loctite on them to keep them secure. It's always a great idea to use since your motorcycle is going to vibrate quite a bit. There's one. There's number 2. You can see the Loctite that they have on there, making it nice and tight. There's number 4. You can set that there for a second. And then we're going to, careful, I'll turn this way so you guys can see it. We're gonna, another clip there. I don't know if it'll get out with the clip, it will. So even with the clip on, we're going to thread those right through that hole there. And now we can take this hideous large fender and never see that again. So now we have still our wires here. We may be removing this clip. We'll look at the next step. All right, it's already looking. That third one you may think is for the tail light, but it's not. You got to remember that that is for our license plate light. There's the license plate light from Motodynamic. So we'll go ahead and plug that one into there. And then the tail light is actually a bit further up in the harness. And that's up here. And we go ahead and plug the last white one into there. Now with that, we can kind of just set this here, push it in a little bit to test it before we put any bolts in it or anything. And we want to make sure we have our license plate light set up there to test. So we'll go ahead and turn it on. That's a check on the running light. Looks great. Comes right through that smoke. Sometimes the smoke taillights can be too dark, or in our opinion, too dark in terms of for safety and brightness. This Motodynamic looks fantastic. And then you can see that very bright, just 2 LEDs, but very, very bright. Gonna be able to light up the license plate, no problem. Now the moment of truth. We'll push on the right brake lever, and there, it's currently set up at the 3 blink to brake, and we'll show you in a second how to modify those as you want them. And then our left turn signal, working great, not sped up. We're running stock front turn signals right now. If we change those out, we may need to add another voltage regulator that Motodynamic gives with us, where now we have the stock ones in, so that's working great. And to the right, and again, although Motodynamic said yellow to left, ours was blue to left. Those look fantastic. And we got, brake looks good. And rear brake also working perfectly. All right, so we've taken off the license plate light from mocking it up, and we made sure it worked. And there is a nut and a washer. We're going to take that off on each side. Great. Then we'll see these 3 holes at the top of the license plate bracket. The ones on the outside are for the 2 bolts, and on the inside, it looks small, but these do thread through, and we'll show you. You'll want to put one through first, and then right behind it, you're going to line up the second one and send it through as well, and then pass it straight through just like that. And then if we turn it upside down, we'll see that came through. We're going to put a washer on each side. And the nut, we can start with hand tightening them down. And then a washer and a nut. Just like that. We have a 7mm here, and we'll just, you don't need to over tighten it, it's just a license plate light, but just to make sure. It's never a bad idea to throw a little Loctite on those as well. And there we go. Okay, to mount this plate, which we now have together, onto that beautiful Ducati 797 Plus, we now have 4 sets of hardware that came with the Motodynamic kit. We have our M8s by 20 and our M8s by 25, the 25 being the longer ones. The shorter ones are going to go towards the rear of the bike. So the shorter ones are going to go right here, towards the tail of the bike, and the longer ones are going to go in the forward positions of the bike. And we'll show you how to do that right now. Bike install, and you've removed that. You're going to want to make sure that this wire is going up through this long oval slot here, rearward of where your plastic fairing bolts in, not over that. You want to come in right You can see that right in this oblong hole. So now that we've got the wire ran up through the correct hole for the taillight, now again, we have our T15 Torxes to mount the taillight back in. This is as simple as taking these little plastic knobs, sliding them into the holes, and making sure this little U slides into that rubber cushion as well. Just like that, nice and snug, 2 T15s with the washers. Torx on a corner drive ratchet, and we are screwing back in the tail light. We got our tail light in nice and tight with our T15s on each side. It's a little tight in there, just gonna have to be a little patient with it, but nice and snug. We loosened up this rear plastic underbelly tray so we could get some access to it. So now all we're gonna do is get it fitting right back up where it belongs and go back and put in the same hardware that we had taken out. With our 4mm hex, remember we have 2 here and a 3rd. These are the ones with the smaller diameter. So we're gonna get that guy right back in there. Just a clip on the bottom, just about lining that up. No need to over tighten these. Just run into a metal clip. There we go. Number 2 on that side. Number 3 is tight. Our seat release looks good. Always want to check that before we put everything back together. And we can see that's moving there and we're releasing there nice and clean. So we know our seat latch is working good. Okay, on this side, we had removed this side panel just to show us how it's done. Again, we have 2 clips here and here. You can see how they fit up and slide forward. Gently gonna fit those in. And then slide them forward right into place. And all 3 of these clips will line up perfectly. So again, the smaller circumference goes here. The first 2 facing forward. Another of the small top. And then the bigger flanged ones go rearward. One nice addition about these 797, 797 pluses for these model years the older Ducatis didn't have is this nice little powered USB here. So whether you're using that, you can run that forward for a phone mount in colder climates, for heated grips or a heated vest. Really nice feature that Ducati added to the Monster lineup.
And you run the wire underneath?
You could run the wire all the way, yep, underneath through the frame, right up here towards the front. We could do that a little bit later. And a nice little clip to hold the phone. So we've got our rear plate here. And again, we're running the M8s, the 20s towards the back, the longer 25s towards the front. With a spacer on top. Start with these. See if we can start with front. So a little easier if you have two pairs of hands, but we can get this done with one. We're gonna put again, we got the 25, the longer. We're gonna put the washer on there. We're gonna fit it through that forward spacing hole. And then on top of that, we've got a plastic spacer right there. But before we do that, let's go ahead and connect our license plate light. Okay, so right before we bolt it up, we're gonna grab our connector again. This one doesn't matter. We have blue and yellow and white and black. Does not matter on the license plate light. Just want to make sure we push those in. Get a good connection there. Great. And again, our license plate light is the one that is connected with our tail light. To finish off mounting the plastic fairing back, we have one more 4mm hex, and it goes right up in the top. Let me get this out of the way for a second. Just nice and snug. Again, don't need over tight. Now we have a nice solid under tray. We're gonna pull these wires up, get them out of the way, and then make sure that our new Motodynamic Fender Eliminator fits as it does. We're gonna again run the 25s, the longer ones, towards the front with a spacer on it. And we can start by hand tightening that in. There's one. And same on the other side. Line it up. Put it through. You can see that. We got bolt, washer, spacer on top. Just gonna put 1 or 2 threads in just to hold it, just so that we can get it in there but still have some room to get the ones in on the top. So Motodynamic on this says to put the M825s, the longer bolts, towards the front and the M820s towards the rear. We've been trying to install it with and without the spacer, and it's just simply too short. We called a friend of ours over at the Ducati dealership. He said to use the stock bolts, and you can see how that is longer. He said to use the stock bolts and it would fit fine. Motodynamic may be, again, reversing this like they did on the blue and yellow wire, and maybe actually the shorter ones would work towards the front. We already have the longer ones in, they're working just fine. We're gonna go ahead and put the stock Ducati hardware in to all 4, because that's what the Ducati tech recommended we do. So we're gonna do that right now, see how that works. All right, we're just tightening up all 4 of these bolts underneath. And that will do it. You can see, super, super sturdy. Already looking beautiful. Tail light looks great. Smoke looks amazing with the black powder coated finish. This is a nice powder coated finish with a little bit of texture. Fits the underbelly real nice and clean. We'll run one more light test before we get all the wiring bundled all up and perfect and put the seat back on. So let's do it, give it a light test. Running lights, looking great. Brake light, working great. Let's check those blinkers. There's our left, and there's our right. We have a lot of wire up here, so now we're just going to carefully and nicely. Wrap these up. Give them some small little zip ties, and one at a time kind of fit them back into their space. So let me grab some zip ties. We're starting to tuck our wiring in, put them back mostly where we found it, but we do have a lot of extra wiring from the Motodynamic kit. This is all usable space under here, so we're just going to kind of nicely push it on in, find a place for all of it. Luckily the monsters have a good amount of room on that tail section. We got that there. We got that tucked in nicely. Didn't even really need any zip ties. That looks really nice and clean, out of the way. The only thing we have left here is our stock trickle charger or battery wiring. We got that guy back. So everything's tucked in, everything looks great. Again, one more time, we're gonna check our rear seat cowl release before we put it back on. Make sure everything is running nicely. It is. That's clearing great. So we'll grab that rear seat. Push that on. Man, that thing looks amazing. Come check out that side profile. There's our before profile. There's our new profile. Absolutely a must-do for the Ducati monsters. Looks amazing. Do one more time with the lights. There's those running lights. Brake lights. Front lever. Rear lever. Left signal. Right signal. Unbelievable. Probably one of the best mods you can absolutely do for the Ducati monsters. We'll tackle some of the front lights and work on an exhaust next. Thanks for checking it out. Make sure you like, please subscribe. Helps us get the message out, and we'll keep putting parts on this bike and others for you guys to see. Thank you very much. Today's project, the finished Ducati Monster 797 Plus. Always a good idea to put things on a stand to do these installs. We use the Pitbull stand, quality stand, never had a problem with them. Dang, that thing looks good.